What if you were the living embodiment of all pervasive peace? What if all sentient beings all around you increase their vibration towards harmony by merely being in your contact? What if, through conscious reasoning, focused will, and intentional living, you reform yourself, thereby becoming a catalyst in sparking transformation in others? I'm Shilpa Lewis, meditation, mindset, and mindfulness coach for midlife mompreneurs, and you are listening to Omnipresent Awareness, the podcast that will inspire you to use your story to serve humanity in not just healing, but thriving as souls, each fulfilling their highest purpose. Namaste. Thanks for tuning in to Omnipresent Awareness. This is your host, Shilpa Lewis, and welcome back. Okay, so I'm running a little challenge as I'm trying to get more people to discover this podcast and the conversations that inspire those who value personal growth. And the best way to do that is to leave reviews. You can leave a review on Spotify, Google Podcast, or Apple Podcast. So here's a little request from me to you. If you feel like you have received any value at all from these episodes, then please write a little review and take a screenshot of your review. Once you've done that, email that screenshot to me at omnimindfulness@gmail.com. Once I get your screenshot, you will receive one of my infographics. Spark your meditation practice through Sankalpa. Sankalpa is the Sanskrit word for intention setting. Along with this, you'll receive a link to my guided meditation where you can daily practice intention setting with some inspirational music and breath work. This infographic, along with the guided meditation, is guaranteed to have you start your practice for meditation with a spark. It is my gift for you for being a listener, being a supporter, and of course for you to be able to manifest the best meditation practice. So thank you for showing up, listening, and being inspired, and most importantly, taking action. I appreciate you. So again, please don't forget to take a screenshot of your review and send it to omnimindfulness@gmail.com, and I will send you that infographic and the link to the guided meditation. And now, a conversation recorded with my partner in awareness, Tanya, from our joint podcast, Mindful Mompreneur Moments. And oh yeah, if you could, please listen to the very end of the podcast for powerful insights from our guest. Thank you. Next up, David Archer. David is an anti-racist psychotherapist and author of Black Meditation. His expertise has been influenced by the principles of mindfulness, intersectional feminism, and critical race theory. He is keenly aware of the needs of underserved populations, including members of the African diaspora, survivors of colonization, and those persons who have experienced intergenerational trauma. David has invested more than 11 years in the field of mental health services. He maintains a full-time private practice and is often recruited to provide consulting services to other therapists and organizations throughout the North America. He has a master's in social work and graduated from McGill University, where he also subsequently graduated from their couple and family therapy program. He is also a registered marriage and family therapist. Stay tuned and listen to David's story.
David, again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Welcome, David.
Thank you, Shilpa. Thank you, Tanya.
We will jump right into our questions for you.
Okay, great.
Can you let our audience know what an anti-racist psychotherapist is? Tell us what you mean by, I was reading into your bio, that the original name of this unceded territory is Teo. Yeah. Can you pronounce that again?
Tjohjage.
Tjohjage. Oh, nice.
Yeah, because I hope your audience is going to be okay. Is that even if you ask me the simple question, it may take 10 minutes for me to answer it. I'll try to be as concise as possible. But yes, an anti-racist psychotherapist. It's interesting. I'm still trying to find out what it is, actually. I know it's unfortunate. I don't have a better answer. But I think of my own name, and my name is David. And this is not necessarily a name that's from an African country, even though my ancestors came from there. But the interesting thing about the story of David and Goliath is that there is an individual who was fighting something that was much larger than him. And despite the odds, through ingenuity, and through maybe a little bit of luck and even a bit of faith and a bunch of other intervening factors, he was able to fight something much larger than him. I think that the idea of psychotherapy is related to the idea of being able to solve problems that the client will bring into the office. And I believe that there are some Goliaths, some elephants in the room that many therapists do not address, that our society is hesitant to address. And I believe that there's a way of being able to in a way, to deconstruct them and to topple them in a way that restores the, I'd say, the beautiful nature of what everyone is capable of. And so when you ask me, what does it mean that I'm an anti-racist psychotherapist? For me, it's really about finding a way to help people to resolve some of the big problems that are in their lives by helping them to recognize that they themselves have the resources within them, that they themselves have even the tools, even if it is just a slingshot, that we start from just there and we're able to find ways of navigating, well-being, success, and blessings into our lives.
That is a great answer, actually.
Thank you.
Shilpa, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you mentioned that there's a depth and meaning behind the name, that is so tied to even the culture that I was raised in, that you personify that in the rest of your life. I'll dive in with a second question for you. So
let's do it.
We chose you because our category is intentional living, mindfulness in a growing multicultural world. And we feel so blessed that you have accepted our invitation. So my question is two parts. Can you tell us in your own words what a growing multicultural world means to you? That's the first part.
Interesting. Okay, well, once again, thank you, Shilpa, for inviting me. Although I do feel blessed to be a part of this and that you have selected me for this discussion. But the thing is that my answer may be a little controversial. It's because the thing is, a growing multicultural world, when I think about it, it sounds nice on the outset. However, if there still is a foundation of white supremacy and Black suffering, or as I term it, the binary complex trauma cycle, which is I could say it in an even simpler way, is that the supremacy of one individual is contingent on the suffering of another individual, then even if we become a multicultural society, it's still going to replicate the same problems. It's because when Tanya was asking me, what does Tjohjage mean? It's just very important that when we think about it, we don't even know the name of this land, the name that was given before we decided to call it Montreal. It's that wasn't the name of it, and this land wasn't called Canada. That they didn't understand the translation. So the thing is that our country is built upon violence. Our country is built upon genocide. And the fantasy of Canada being this multicultural place where everybody is equal is built upon the premise that we cut ourselves off from our memory of the past. So it means that as Canadians, as Americans, and many other people who live in countries that are where colonization is the origin of the country, even if we advance the idea of being multicultural, we also need to advance the idea of being anti-racist, or else multiculturalism is just going to split up the idea of winners and losers because our society is based on these binaries. This is the how I talk about the trauma of white supremacy. This is how I talk about the trauma of anti-Black racism, is that there's something that happened originally that if we don't fix is going to just lead to more suffering down the road.
That's right. I couldn't have said it better. And it's a matter also of being in a space like you and I are in constant mindfulness and inner work. I think that that's where it really starts for every single person. The work that you do inside and realizing your part in it all, and healing from any aggressions and any and people also being able to, some people may not want to hear it, right? Mm-hmm. And our allies have to be the ones who truly are able to hear the things that are not so easy to hear sometimes, and work towards a better world so that we can really truly say multiculturalism and feel the love, feel that warmth, you know?
Well, the interesting thing is that words matter. So I'm going to go back again to say Jogge, and like, that name was given to the place with an intention. There are people who congregated and said, this is the reason why we're calling it this. And when we think about the word ally, even, Resmaa Menakem, who wrote a great book called My Grandmother's Hands, he outlines ways that we can kind of deal with the effects of racism through being able to focus on what he calls somatic abolitionism. So there's movements we can do with our body, there's breath work that we can do that helps us. But he did a recent post talking about ally, and even the word ally, is because the thing is that since 2021, since 2020, I'm sure that most people have never heard this word so frequent. Now, all of a sudden, everybody is an ally of Black justice and all of these things. And ally is just a convenient term because anybody can say that they're an ally. It's kind of like it's like a membership card. You go to like the gas station or something, and they're like, "Are you an ally? Okay, well, you get this extra benefit." You didn't really have to work that hard for the membership card. In fact, all you need to do is just keep it with you. And when you see Black people, you just show it to them. You're an ally. And then it's like all of a sudden the Black person should feel that they're safe. No, I think that the word ally, I like the word accomplice a bit better. But even these words, like, they don't mean anything if there's no action behind it. The ally is someone who's going to say that they're friends with the person. But we saw that, and the book speaks about this, Black Meditation, where after the George Floyd protests, I think it was about by September, there was this large percentage of white people who no longer sympathized or empathized with the fight for racial justice. So it went from June, where everybody was mobilized, and then a few months, no, we don't like George Floyd anymore. So I believe that that's what this fake allyship thing looks like, is that a person is going to say, throw their membership card and be like, yo, yeah, I'm behind you. Yeah. And behind the scenes, they're like, let's get back to, let's keep it as business as usual. So I do think that the words really matter, but also the actions behind them. I think the traditions that form the foundation behind them are especially even more important. The practice of allyship, the practice of being an accomplice, someone who's willing to put themselves on the line in order to fight a system of oppression that is causing suffering across the board.
And I just love when you said the words matter. Going back to spiritual roots, it's about the vibration, about the intention behind the words. Mm-hmm. Words can be a wall or they can be a window. And I just really love how you mindfully brought our attention back to the fact that what are the intentions behind the words?
Mm-hmm.
For sharing that.
Well, thank you. And again, is that because I'm a therapist, I believe that part of my job is to make it so that the unconscious becomes a little bit more conscious. But that can be jarring for a lot of people, and it can be uncomfortable for a lot of people. As a therapist, I see people and then they cry when I see them. People need to have Kleenex boxes when I'm around because I'm going to end up bringing up certain types of things. It's not because I'm the worst person or a bad person to be around. I just think that it's like part of my skill set, part of the purpose why I'm here is that I'm just committed to seeing seeing all people heal from this madness. I think that yeah, please go ahead.
I believe that it has to come out in that way in order for it to heal in the proper way. You kind of have to shed those tears and feel the pain before you can, be okay with what happened, whatever trauma it was.
Yes, there was one time when I went to in a Native community. I attended a funeral, and there was an individual who was leading the process, and in the way how the funeral proceeded was very different from what I was used to in my own Christian upbringing. But it was interesting when there was a discussion about how tears are nature's way of removing toxins and like telling people that it's okay to cry. In our Western society, there's this idea that our emotions are wrong. The young boy is told from an early age that boys don't cry. Or the man is told that like a real man can do all of these things on their own. Even women as well. The woman is told that they must be independent and not need anybody around them, because the foundation of what we're resting upon is individualism. We're resting on this idea that it should only be us. But strangely enough, when we talk about mindfulness as human, our species, these creatures that we are, we're one of the few animals on this planet that can kind of like close their eyes and feel safe, can sit just focusing on the breath and repair our brains through this practice, that we can sit with others and have this resonant, because you're talking, Shilpa, about vibration. Sometimes I found that when I'm just meditating with other people, common purpose, that there's something that happens at a group level. So even though I did start off by talking about some of the suffering, is just to know that there's a great possibility of people healing as well if we put our minds to it and our hearts, and eventually then we can get in touch with our gut to speak about intuition as well.
Yeah, and they're all so related. The gut, I hear, is like a second brain, really. And
Yep.
just being able to connect all of those together, and like you say, the power of meditating in a group and feeling how powerful it is to have one intention and everyone join together is extremely powerful.
It's so powerful, and the fact that I often feel like, what can I do to make a difference? And it may sound very simplistic, but sometimes just meditating and sending out the good intentions. I know it sounds simple, but that's what I do.
Yes. Well, the thing is that I often tell people that kind of the oxygen mask metaphor, when you're on a plane and they show you that if there's an emergency, you got to make sure you have your oxygen mask on first before someone else's. And that's also a form of meditation, is that we need to breathe first before we do the action that results in like helping somebody. Sometimes it is a good practice for us to start first by grounding ourselves in the moment, by noticing the breath, and by cultivating a sense of purpose and discipline through the breath. And then that puts us in a better position to be able to assist others as well. But I do have like a little, like controversial, everything I said is probably controversial since I started. But the thing is that there's a benefit for our mindfulness in that if we go off into a cave, into a mountain by ourselves, we may be able to reach an enlightenment that is like important and significant. But I really believe, this is my own collectivist idea coming out here, is that the meditation is as useful as it does benefit the society that we are a part of. So even though in Black meditation, I talk about skills that relate to the individual self-care, the chapters are also devoted towards helping people to more fully engage in life, to stand up to oppression, to make links and connections with people that can help them, to strengthen them and build them up, and also putting that oxygen mask on yourself as well. There needs to be a balance.
Yeah, that is just so beautiful, because it just helps in the collective healing when you put it on yourself first, but then also not just heal yourself, try to impact the world around you. I think extremely powerful. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that, David.
Well, thank you. The thing is, this is just a freestyle. I mean, you guys are asking the questions. I'm just, I'm just saying what's in the book. You know, like I'm just saying what's on my mind.
Of course, and perhaps you can give some more mindfulness and the tools that you used intentionally to help in the collective healing. You can maybe give us a few more of those. Besides the book, which sounds amazing. I have my copy. I'm reading it.
Thank you.
Yet, but yes.
Yes, the name of the book, Black Meditation, 10 Practices for Self-Care, Mindfulness, and Self-Determination. In the book, I do outline a lot of what I use to take care of myself. I also speak a bit about a lot of what some of my clients have also used as well. I also use like some things that other people have taught me. I don't believe that I'm like the one person who has all the answers about anything. And so that's why even in the book, I have some meditators that I've also interviewed where they speak about what it is that they use in order to cope with the effects of a society that's built on like a rocky foundation. So I will say that one thing that I do use in order to make the world a better place, I think, if that's the question, is that okay?
Yes.
Could I go in that direction?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the thing is that one thing is that I talk about anti-racism. I think that like talking about anti-racism can be challenging because it's always going to bring up like the idea of people being like, what do you mean racist? We don't want no CRT. We don't want stuff like that. Like there's always going to be that person that's there, or the person who's like, no, not all white people, or all of this stuff. And it's just that, again, this is just for us to bring the unconscious to the level of consciousness. Critical race theory is going to suggest that racism is an ordinary thing in North America. And that's not such a bad idea. It's just it's an inconvenient idea, something that's uncomfortable for us. But once we are able to diagnose these ideas or these problems, then we can actually set the stage for doing something about it. So one of my contributions, I feel, is by being able to talk about these types of topics, but also being able to speak about ways how we can heal from these situations. I think the best way that I benefit the world, though, if I can say so, I don't know who keeps track, maybe God may disagree, but the thing is that I think one of the best things that I do is I get to witness people heal. I've seen so many people recover from suffering that it changes you. When you see people who bounce back, when you see people who doubt themselves and then they learn to love themselves, when you hear a person say, I am proud to be a Black woman. You know, I had a client who was also like, you know, I'm just proud of my Native heritage. Like when people are saying these things, it changes the witness. The person who witnesses this is vicariously trauma, instead of vicarious trauma, it's more of a vicarious growth that happens.
Yes.
And so for me, I've been blessed to be able to see people recover. And that makes me believe that it's possible for even this world to recover from these traumas of racism, sexism, and all other forms of bigotry. But it does take more than just a meditation, as I was saying, is that there also needs to be actions that take place, like, you know, but the challenge is that many people benefit from the suffering of others. Otherwise, the suffering wouldn't be there in the first place. The challenge is that we still have poverty. The challenge is that these basic things like violence against women, we still have these things. We still have racism. So I believe that there's these little things that I do to help people out. There's the healing that I witness. And also there's that drive that regardless of whether the outcome does happen or not, is I'm a person who follows his calling.
I find that so inspiring, especially when you talked about bringing it into one's consciousness, whether it's violence towards women or racism. That alone, bringing that awareness is a form of action. That feels healing to me because sometimes I feel like, how can I help? What can I do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just that, is that when we talk about these difficult topics, there's a feeling that takes place, and sometimes even just inquiring about what is this feeling? Is this suffering? What is this suffering? How do I resolve this suffering? Even that type of introspection can lead us to have a clearer path into how we can resolve it. Before I had this interview, I also went on a walk in the forest. So I just came back. And I noticed that when you're in a forest, what tends to take place is that when you enter the forest, you might see a tree. And when you see the tree, you might notice the bark of the tree. When you look upwards, you might see some of the leaves. When you look below, you might see some of the leaves on the ground as well, because it's the fall season at this time. And I noticed that nature is always in some way, through what you see, through what you hear, through the crunching of the leaves, through all of our senses, is always demanding us to be present. So I feel every experience that we get, even if they are, or even if they don't seem like the greatest experiences, are demanding us, or trying, not even demanding us, they're gently offering us the opportunity to return into the present. So even the discomfort that people might feel, like listening to certain things that are too intense, it brings us into the present so that we can focus our attention and then create a better future for the years to come.
That is profound.
That's right. Are you able to give us any insights or actionable steps for our audience and for ourselves that we can do to make it better for the people around us and for ourselves?
Yeah, one of them is to stop racism. I think that's a simple one. And stop sexism, stop homophobia. Okay? I think that's a simple answer.
How do we go about getting into the mind of the right people in order to really make them understand that it starts within, and it's also a team effort?
Yes.
Yeah, David, it reminds me of my roots are from India and Mahatma Gandhi. My grandmother fought for him, went to jail. And I often think, wow, she was such a spitfire. She knew
Yes.
how to be a leader. But not everyone has that in them, like that fire. Um, I guess I don't have a real question. It's just more of an observation that, yes,
Yeah,
it seems easy on the surface, but it's not.
it's true. And no disrespect, but Gandhi also, I don't know if he liked a lot of Black people.
Oh,
Yeah, it's very interesting. Huh? I feel like every time that, I feel as time goes on, it's like the history books look back at people and they're like, these are individuals. So it's thus, of course, he did have a significance fighting for the independence of India. Okay, but it's just to say that we don't have to be the perfect leader all the time. So sometimes what happens is that we'll look at the Gandhi and we'll be like, oh, well, I'm not him, so I can't do anything. Or we'll look at the MLK and say, I'm not him, so I can't do it. Or the Martin Delaney or the Fred Hampton, and we'll be like, no, I don't have the charisma. I can't do these things. But you don't need to start there. I feel that like sometimes I'll speak to people and they'll say things like, there's so much going on, nothing's ever going to change. But they fail to realize that if you change your perspective, you will see that miracles are not the exception, but they're the rule of existence.
Absolutely.
So we start with small steps. So sometimes an anti-racist action is just the fact you're having this podcast. Sometimes an anti-racist action is the fact that you decided to wake up today and you decided to not give up. You've decided to maintain discipline, that you have decided to be in a space that you are comfortable with. You've decided self-preservation rather than isolation. And what happens is that when we are doing it with intentionality, of saying the reason why I am doing this is because of this eventual goal or this eventual outcome, then you end up in that place all along. I think even Gandhi, I don't know if he did everything he did for that. Like, he didn't start off like with his practice doing that for that reason. It's just that eventually synchronicity started to pile up. So I really do believe that it's the small steps. That's why in the book is talking about that, is that it takes courage to sit. Isn't it fascinating that as meditators, is that when we sit in the meditation, sometimes it can be very scary. There can be terrible things that come up in my meditations. Okay, so the thing is, and probably in some of yours as well. And the interesting thing, though, is that you still return to sit and you still continue the practice. And sometimes, as we are able to sit with diligence, noticing the breath with persistence, then something different happens. And so even sometimes sitting is an action. We don't always need to do it for the specific goal of changing the universe or changing the world. Sometimes it's really just about changing our own inner world and just recognizing and cultivating self-love for ourselves and for our fellow humans.
Thank you so much. Yeah. We are so blessed to have had you among us. You have so many beautiful insights for people. And I highly recommend, I know I'm just at the beginning. Sorry, guys, my son is with us. I'm just at the beginnings of reading the book and I'm so hooked. So we will put all of the links in the description. And we thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Many blessings. And we have the young meditator who's also saying a mantra.
Thank you, David.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Many blessings to all of you.
Blessing.
Thanks again for tuning in. Check out the links in the description, and please subscribe, follow, and share. And continue to be omnipresent.